Hello, everybody. Today I have prepared a reflection for you about Plato and his works on love and eros and what that can do to help us to make better decisions when it comes to dating, especially modern dating. Now, I find myself uniquely qualified because I'm very familiar with Plato. I've studied Plato extensively. Um, College and elsewhere. And also, I'm very familiar with modern dating. So, being Gen Z or on the cusp of Gen Z and millennial, but I'm kind of more of a Gen Z. So, very familiar with both topics. So, let's dive into that. How can Plato help us to navigate the modern dating better? And I have prepared for you a little story, a little section of one of his dialogues as a good representative of his view of love and how different it is from our view, but also how our view is not that new or unique. It's actually very old. And Plato himself, or rather Socrates himself, his teacher, combated this view in one of the dialogues. And the dialogue I'm talking about is called Symposium. It's a very unique and funny and interesting dialogue because Symposium, which is also known as the feast or the drinking party, is actually exactly that. It's a drinking party. It's one late night in Athens, and many historians believe it actually happened, where a bunch of poets and playwrights and philosophers came together to discuss eros, and drink. So what could go wrong, right? And in any case, there's one point where Aristophanes, the famous playwright, he has a speech about eros, and he talks about how love, especially that kind of love, is about becoming whole. He gives this example, a myth of how humans used to be actually these very scary creatures which had two legs each, two hands each, and two heads each. So they were like this four-legged, four-handed creatures, very scary. They used to spin around. It's really weird and funny when you think about it, but they were very strong and capable. And so the Olympian gods, got scared of humans and basically decided to just cut them in half. And so Zeus cut human beings in half. And so ever since that point of time, humans were, trying to get together so that they may become whole. Now, when I read this and I look at the modern dating, I see a very strong parallel there because it's really about, like, modern dating is really about finding the perfect match. Um, and both men and women, of course, more for women because that's just their nature, they're more hypergamous. But when you look at both partners, really both genders are trying to satisfy their ego and to become whole because they always feel some kind of emptiness alone, to become whole and to find this missing part. In other words, the way we call it now is soulmate, right? So there's that perfect one, the one. And the reason they're perfect is because they have no faults. Now, the problem with that is that there's very little effort required on your part in building this relationship. In other words, it's kind of like consumer love. You consume the other person, they consume you, you become the whole by getting together. There's some truth to that, becoming whole together, but the way Socrates retorts to Aristophanes is that he points out to a priestess, Diotima, who taught him about, or had taught him about, the ladder of love. And so the ladder of love is kind of the opposite thing to the modern and or rather Aristophanic idea of love, which is about finding a partner to become whole. Because the idea of the ladder of love is the idea that the pursuit of eros is actually about the pursuit of being better. So instead of being whole, you want to become holy. And in other words, it's as Socrates says, love is the birth, in beauty, and for him, beauty is equal to goodness and truthfulness. So it really is um, the pursuit of goodness through giving this birth. Rather, the way it manifests is it gives these fruits, and there's many levels upon which it gives fruits. Of course, the very first level of this ladder of love is birth, and really the goal of love is a participation in immortality. So it's very deep and transformative view of love. Of course, at odds with modern dating, because modern dating is not only about finding a soulmate, but it's also about having fun. You know, you find a soulmate when you're 30, but before then, you're having fun. And a lot of these situationships and things like that. So it's really just at that base level um, of the ladder of love. Even below that, because really the base level of the ladder of love is the birth in beauty, the physical birth in beauty. So you're having children. And that is why Socrates finds homosexuality repulsive, because he finds it to be unable to produce this fruit. It's not really participation in immortality because it doesn't produce the fruit. And obviously, the final goal or the climb of the ladder of love, when you reach the top of the pinnacle, is the participation in immortality in a transcendental way. It's uniting yourself with the good itself. In other words, um, there's a section in Symposium where um, somebody tells Socrates, you know, when you find this goodness, the goodness itself, and when you fall in love with the goodness itself, you will realize that the even the love of the boys is inferior to it. Of course, the PDF illic tendencies of the Greeks show there, but that even that which they found the highest form of love is lower than the love of the good itself. So in the Christian worldview, that will be God Himself, of course, and the participation of immortality is participation in the love of Christ and in the life of Christ. But um, we see in the modern dating how far away we are from those ideas precisely because we don't have the idea of God. We don't have the idea of immortality as an option. So everything is temporary and temporal. And I find that to be very tragic. And of course, we see that the fruits that it's bearing are actually the fruits of death. That this massive dating for fun and aimless dating and exclusion of love is a pathway to immortality idea has brought about the not only the separation from God but also the physical death and the fact that the birth rates are dropping and all of that is very much connected to our modern understanding of dating. But we shouldn't be so ashamed of it because again it goes back to this Aristophatic view where really love is seen as satisfaction of desire to be whole. It's seen as the uh, finding the perfect match or the soulmate. So maybe what Plato can teach us is to be more open to the idea of love as a sacrifice, of love as a mutual game where we become better together. Um, and to give a practical advice, how that could reflect both for men and women. For women, I think, of course, most of modern young women are they find the idea of having children and committing young, especially in their 20s, repulsive. You know, I spoke to dozens of young women who all of them say, you know what, 20s are for fun. When I turn 30, I'll have children. And this is really the methodology of the devil. This is how he convinces you to do his will. He drives your attention. He knows that where your attention is, That's where your mind is. And what has been the cultural project of the devil? His project has been to draw the attention of women through culture, of course, through music and movies and literature, and the whole of our culture is anti-natalist. It's portraying only the hardships of having children. So when you focus on the hard things of having children, which is like, it's expensive, it takes away your time, you can't get out, you can't have fun. Children require a lot of attention and money. They require investment of two of the most important resources we have. So when your attention is on that part of having children, of course you're gonna say, I don't want to have children, I don't want to commit, I don't want to view love as a pathway to immortality through children, but as a recreational thing. And maybe when I turn 30, I'll do it. But what if we were to look at the beauty, if we were to draw our attention to the beauty of having children, if we only thought about how fun children themselves are and how fun it is to be around children, maybe we wouldn't think it's such an odd idea to have children young. Or, just draw our attention to all the other good parts of having children young, which is we'll be able to share so much more of our lives together, and we'll be able to see our grandchildren and so forth. So there are many benefits to having children young, but our attention, especially young women's attention, is somehow never focused on that, and that is the issue with the culture. And then for men, of course, the standards of women have gone up. That now that they can also work and they can provide for themselves, a lot of men are complaining that it's hard to satisfy the hypergamy of women, right? The desire of women to have somebody better than them with them. And that could be an opportunity for men to really do become better, right? Instead of complaining. A lot of men just find an excuse to complain and to be lazy. But really, when you think about it, it's not that hard to have a business or make money these days. Compare the opportunities we have now with the opportunities even our fathers had or their fathers before them. Just 100 years ago, it was so difficult to have your own business or do what we can do now with all the technology that we have. It's never been easier really to make money. So what the men can do, if they apply Plato's advice, is to try to actually be better in every sense, physically, but also to be better spiritually and morally. So that would be my reading of Symposium and Plato and how we could implement it. Do make sure to join the channel, subscribe and share it. We're trying to grow a community of people who appreciate ancient wisdom and literature and culture as a source of transformation for the better, as a way to become better, more successful in every way of life, in every aspect of life. And if that's your goal, make sure to follow, subscribe, and until next time, cheers.